Good morning. We begin today's class, and yesterday we were talking about conflict as a plot element. Today we will be looking at character as a plot element. So, I have before you 4 characters from 4 different classics: Annie Hall, Diane Keaton of course as Annie Hall, Holly Golightly, Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Huno from Huno, and Audrey Tautou from Emily. So, if I ask you what is character, and when you look at these 4 female characters, what do you understand? Why are we interested in characters at all? Do we need to have interesting characters? What would you say to that? Siddharth, yeah, okay.
Because how they interact with the other elements of the story shapes the story.
Okay, what could be those other elements? So, character is all about interaction with other characters, okay. Anything else?
Their own actions. It needn't be interactions.
Yeah, you are contradicting him, but then you give me some plots, contradict him later. Give me your own point on or your own view on what is a character.
Character can actually be something that actually propels the entire plot.
Okay. Character, this is important, he is a theoretician in the making. Character propels plot. Okay. Character perceives or views a situation. Okay. Anything? So, why are these characters so important to us? Anything that is common among all these characters?
They don't conform to the society norms in some way or the other.
Good. They are all non-conformists. Unique individuals, very often eccentric. So, all that contributes towards lending a touch of interest to these characters. So, characterization, so, there has been lot of writings on characterization, but what makes a character interesting is, yeah. So, can you think of more characters apart from these that come to your mind when you think of great characters on screen?
As a other character who doesn't conform to society's standards, you can have Jack Nicholson's character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay, so One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson in the movie is a memorable character. Michael Corleone is a memorable character from some other movie. Tony Montana is a memorable character from Scarface. Yeah, and so anything else? I mean, you all watch movies, any number of.
Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter, yes, that is a memorable character. Closer home, our own Munna Bhai series. Okay. What makes Munna Bhai series that popular? Not the plot, the characterization. And if you look at all great characters, they all stand out because of, one is the way they perceive society, perceive situations, and also the way they interact with others. So, you know, that also matters. So, if they are unique characters, they stand out. That is just a very simplistic introduction to what makes characters interesting. Now, many a time what happens is appearances of character, they are extremely important. Characters become important because of their appearance. Appearance make them stand out. Fargo and Aaron Brockovich. Now, what's so important about Frances McDermott's appearance in Fargo? She is pregnant. She is a small town police officer. Okay. She is pregnant. Does she look like a police officer from any angle? Well, perhaps her clothes. She has the uniform. But apart from that, does she subscribe to the norms of a standard policewoman? No, she doesn't. She stands out. Okay. Who would expect a pregnant female police officer investigating a very brutal murder? Okay. So, so appearance does matter. What kind of a look you give to a particular character, that also contributes towards making of a character. Julia Roberts in Erin Brockovich, it got her the Academy Award. Why does she stand out by way of her appearance? She is after all a social activist, an environmental activist, but what is the way she dresses up?
Fashionable.
She was a
very
beauty queen
grungy,
too.
yeah, fashion, but also not high fashion, yes.
She was a beauty queen too in the same movie.
Yeah,
She
okay.
mentions.
Yeah, so that again goes against the type. Okay, so you do not expect a social activist to be dressed the way Julia Roberts dresses up. Otherwise, it would give a very commonplace appearance. She does not stand out, but in order to make her stand out, you have to give her certain unique attributes, and their looks count. Any other example you can think of? Okay. Characters are also determined by their accents, dialects, their vocabulary, the kind of grammar they speak, and what do all these things suggest? When Munna Bhai speaks in a particular accent, what does it tell you about him? Where does he come from? Okay? So, his socio-economic, educational background. And where does the comedy arise in Munna Bhai series? Placing that kind of a character in completely incongruous situation. Yeah. So, you would not expect a doctor or medical student to dress or to behave or to speak in the way he does. So, that contributes towards lending a uniqueness to the character. Okay. Incongruity. Educational background, of course, and then your accents and dialects also give away the mental processes a character goes through. So, for example, when we are talking about accents and dialogues and how they contribute towards making a character, there is another movie, Possession. Is anyone familiar with this film? Gwyneth Paltrow and Aaron Eckhart.
She plays a wife whose mother-in-law is.
No, in this she is a PhD scholar and he is a research associate, and they are doing research on certain 18th century poets. Okay, so their romance runs parallel with those two characters they are working on. Okay. So, their dialects and their accents differ from the way the couple in the earlier generation behaved and spoke, and yeah. So, that also because see when the younger generation is shown to be more vernacular in its speech, whereas the previous generation is more formal. Okay. So, that is what gives out the difference between the two. Characters are often determined by action, external action as well as internal action. We have been talking about external, internal even when we are discussing conflict. Conflict could be external. Do you remember what were those external forces? Against nature, against power structures. Yeah, we looked at the example of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, that is again rebelling against a conformist society. So, that is external rebellion. Internal rebellion or a conflict, we saw films like Taxi Driver. So is character. So, external action, Schwarzenegger, will you find internal action? That would be extremely incongruous. Azhar, do you have something to say to that? But when you go and watch a movie starring Schwarzenegger, in which there is a lot of internal action, that must be an exception. Okay, but when you go for a Schwarzenegger movie, including the recent Expendables, and also there is the most recent one, The Last Stand. Yeah, okay. So he doesn't disappoint. Okay, he will disappoint when he start having internal dialogue or become an existentialist hero. So he is no Godardian hero. You expect something from Schwarzenegger, and yes, we are also talking, in other words, about a star's image. Okay, so a star's image also contribute towards the action he performs. I am not saying action hero, how he acts on screen. Okay, so doing what comes naturally to the character. Internal action, think Anthony Perkins from Psycho. You can also think of Anthony Hopkins, the other Anthony in Silence of the Lambs. Okay, plenty of internal action. Now, for example, when you look at the still of Anthony Perkins standing below this huge stuffed bird, what does it tell you? Maybe at that point in the movie it does not tell you anything, but when you finish watching the film, when you complete when you are done with the movie, does this scene mean anything to you? The image of the stuffed bird. No one seems to have watched Psycho.
Predatory.
Predatory. Okay, so he is a predator, and this Hitchcock gives you that clue from the beginning of the movie. Predatory, as well as the idea of a stuffed bird. At the end we realize his mother is also a stuffed mother. Okay, a stuffed figure. Yes?
Also, his face is, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but his face is half dark, half light, his split personality.
Noish. Yes, very good. Okay, so face covered in shades of light and darkness. Yeah, so we are not able to really understand what this character is all about. So these are the clues filmmakers give. Internal action. Yeah, we have been talking about, are you talking to me? Robert De Niro talking to himself, having a lot of action, but much of it is also mental process. Otherwise, you see, if you watch Taxi Driver, and I again urge you to watch Taxi Driver, you will find that there is very little violence on screen, except in the climax where he goes on a rampage, killing everyone in that brothel. Otherwise, you do not find any physical violence in the movie. Much of the violence comes through the character's body language, the music, again the way lights, the interplay of lights and darkness. Harvey Keitel, again from another Martin Scorsese movie, Mean Streets. Lot of internal conflict and therefore representing internal action. So he is a gangster. At the same time, he is torn between his loyalty towards his masters, the gangster masters, the gang lords, and his friends, and as well as his religion. So therefore, we find him very often doing penance, running his fingers through a burning candle or through a burning matchstick. Yeah, self punishment. Yes, and this is something, so it tells you a lot about internal action. Watch Mean Streets if you haven't already. Names of characters, the way filmmakers name characters also tell you a lot about the characters. So, Holly Golightly says a lot about, she goes lightly, she does not want to carry the baggage of a past. Yeah. If you read the novel Breakfast at Tiffany's, then she has a past, okay, but she wants to do away with that. Therefore, so names are often evocative, names are often symbolic, they can also be ironic. You can name a person a particular quality and the person's character could be exactly opposite of that, but then that lends an ironic touch, a funny touch. Okay. Names also connote. So, you have done denotative and connotative code. So, no, yeah. So, The Saint, Val Kilmer, of course, it is based on a comic book series, but have you watched Saint? Val Kilmer's Saint. Okay, you must watch it. It is not such an old movie, maybe 90s. Yeah. So, so what is The Saint all about? Is he a saint? He is a master thief, okay, and a master in disguise. Hrithik Roshan's character in Dhoom was based on the saint. Okay. He is an expert thief, he works alone and he changes disguises in a flash of a second. The name of the character, Daniel Day-Lewis for example is Hawkeye, playing an Indian, a Native American in The Last of the Mohicans. Hawkeye, and what does Hawkeye mean? Who has you know a penetrating insight as well as he never misses a shot. Okay. So, he is expert in both these things, in reading people as well as never missing a shot. So, that is, and Ben Stiller, okay, meet the parents and the series, and you know what his name connotes in the movie. Characters can also be seen through multiple perspectives. Another feature of characters. Characters, well, you see, you are something, you mean something to your parents, you mean something to your friends, and you mean something else to your teachers. Okay, so, multiple perspectives. Yeah, characters seen through different points of view, and we have some very good example in Citizen Kane. How many of you have watched Citizen Kane? Good, quite a few. Please watch it all over again for this course. So, what does Citizen Kane, what is the quest all about? Rosebud. To understand what was the exact meaning of the word rosebud as uttered by the dying publishing tycoon Charles Foster Kane. What did it mean? And there is a journalist. Throughout the movie, we have a quest for discovering the meaning of this word, rosebud. So, while he is trying to decipher the meaning of rosebud, he comes across a series of people who give multiple points of view on whom? On Charles Foster Kane, what he meant to them, what he was all about. So, was he a saint or a sinner? We never know. Velvet Goldmine is a very niche kind of a movie. Is anyone familiar with that, with this? I thought because it is a Christian Bale movie, Ewan McGregor and Christian Bale, and Velvet Goldmine, it is about the pop culture scenario in the 60s Britain, and there is a journalist played by Christian Bale who investigates the life and times of a popular rock star, and it follows the same trajectory as Citizen Kane. Characters can be static. For example, Brad Pitt's character in A River Runs Through It. Has anyone watched the movie? A River Runs Through It. It is one of his earlier movies directed by Robert Redford. So, he plays Paul. He is impulsive, drinks too much, gets in card games, wants nothing more than to stay in a small town of Montana and working for a newspaper. There is not much happening in his life. He does not want anything, static character. Dynamic character. Dynamic characters are affected by plot developments. So, if static characters do not undergo any personality changes, then on the other hand dynamic characters do. They become wiser, mature, more responsible. So, we often use a term called self realization. So, that you find in the characters of dynamic people, self realization. And this is the kind of character which is important in serious films, serious drama. You cannot have serious drama if you do not have very good characterization. But comedies thrive on static characters. If people start changing in comedies, then there would not be much of a comedy there. Think of any static character which which never fails to amuse you. Mr. Bean. Rush Hour, yeah. Mr. Bean is a very good example. Yeah, when you go and watch Mr. Bean part 1, part 2, part 3, he goes on a holiday to Paris or Whistler's mother. Okay, wherever he goes, you expect the same. Even the appearance, his clothes never change, his body language never changes, and you expect that. And that's because all those things lead to comedy, but that's not the case in serious drama. Okay, we have given the theory of round and flat characters by who? Vijay, any idea who gave us the theory of round and flat characters in a book called Aspects of the Novel? Yes, E.M. Foster in Aspects of the Novel gives us two kinds of characters, round and flat. Foster tells us that flat characters are two dimensional. That means they do not have, they are not multifaceted, they are predictable. I am going to ask you, you people keep taking down notes, but do not participate all that. I will ask you, give me some examples from who you think are flat characters. Yeah, Paleri, think of something. I am going to come to all of you within a second. Flat characters lack psychological depth and complexity. They are often cliches, representative characters, cliches, stereotypes. Now think of certain examples. I am going to give you examples, but I want answers to come from you. Flat character.
Vietnam War veterans.
Vietnam War movies.
Big Lebowski, the dude's friend.
Big Lebowski?
The dude's friend.
John Goodman.
Dude.
No, the dude's friend.
John Goodman.
Dude's friend is a flat character, okay? Yes?
Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction.
Mr. Wolf
Harvey
does
Keitel.
not have too much of a screen time, but okay, yeah. And he is there for a reason. Yeah. Yeah, so
There is
fine.
no complexity.
Right. I would even say Uma Thurman's character in Pulp Fiction, yeah, is very two-dimensional. In Pulp Fiction? Yeah, okay. Okay, anything else from our own cinema, our regional cinema or Bollywood? Everyone. Everyone is flat character. Okay, give me all these everyones. If you think all characters in our cinema are flat, so give me some examples.
Most of the women casting in side roles.
even in central roles.
Even, yeah, in the,
Yeah.
I mean, not women-driven movies. All the women are cast as just like props.
Yeah.
The
So
mothers in
a
family
standard
drama.
heroine in a standard fare is always a flat character. Okay. We know the routine things, so we don't have to get into details about that. What a heroine is expected to do. So right. Dynamic characters. So immediately we can think of Marlon Brando in Kazan's On the Waterfront. Please watch it during this long weekend. Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean. In fact, it's very interesting to note that dynamism on a screen, dynamic characters started getting noticed, especially with the advent of the so-called method acting. So, both Brando and Monty Clift, as well as James Dean to an extent, they were all method actors trained in the Stanislavski method of acting. We will be talking about that at some stage.
This class you were talking about camp. So are camp characters all flat?
Campy characters,
Campy.
very flat. How many of you have watched a movie called Disco Dancer? Mithun's Disco Dancer. Have you? Have you? Okay, please do watch it. Of course, it's very incongruous in a film studies, this kind of a course, and then suddenly I talk about Disco Dancer. Okay, but do watch it, and it will give you a great insight into Bollywood camp. Okay, it has all the features of a camp. Okay, camp can also be serious. So camp need not be confused with cult. Somebody was talking about, is camp cult? Not necessarily, not necessarily. But yeah, characters are pretty flat, because that is what camp is all about, and the beauty of camp is that characters are flat. Okay. So, flat to round characters again are also dynamic. John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. How many of you have watched the movie? Azhar? Have you? Okay, watch it all over again, the uncut, unabridged version. We will talk about the film after the end of this class. Okay, just hang on, wait, do not leave the class before this. So, and Robert De Niro, for example, in Raging Bull, dynamic characters. They have multifaceted characters, round characters. There are many aspects to their characters. So, you cannot say exactly that this is a good guy or a bad guy. They are in shades of grey. Okay, so, that is what I mean by round character, and there is also progression in the character. By the end of the film, there is a progression. Okay, there is something, the character has learned about himself and about life and about other people. My question to you, characters from very popular, everyone's favorite, Ocean's 11, Ocean series, what are they? How would you classify? Flat. Yeah, but then that adds to the beauty. Flat characters. I mean, you expect these characters to behave in a way, to speak certain one-liners. Okay. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any Ocean series. So, you want each character is a stereotype. It represents a type, right? They tell you something, okay, and you expect, I mean, if in the second series, if they start going against the type, you will be disappointed, I am sure. So, you want the same things to happen repeatedly in every sequel. So, therefore, when we come to our discussion on the sequels of film sequels, we expect the same kind of characterizations, but all sequels are not necessarily flat characters. For example, again Godfather had several sequels. Stereotypes. Okay, tell me, what is the stereotype in a movie like, hugely popular movie like Devdas?
The melodramatic mother apart from these?
Melodramatic mother, it doesn't get more melodramatic than what we saw in that movie. Yes. The alcoholic lover. I mean, we all love such lovers, right? Who give up their lives and future and all ambitions for the love of their life. And of course, you have the golden hearted courtesan, the prostitute with a heart of gold. That's a trope, that's a cliche. But then it's not a cliche common only to our films. The Western also had plenty of such characters, the cliche. Remember we were talking about the blonde and the dark haired girl. The dark haired girl would always have dubious morals, but at the end would always take the bullet on her heart for the hero. Yeah. Characters are often enigmatic, interesting characters. For example, Juliette Binoche's character in Chocolat. Not much is known about their past, their backgrounds, where they come from, how they are going to end. They are mysterious. Can you think of more mysterious characters? Yes. The Joker in the darkness. See, Joker is not physically powerful at all. He gets bashed up all the time by the Dark Knight. But what makes him such a formidable opponent? Yeah, the mind games he is able to play. Yeah. And of course, since we are on the topic of Joker, Joker is a good example of the unreliable narrator. Can you give me some example why?
Several different versions of his past and he doesn't know which one.
Do you know how I got these scars? At one point, he tells Maggie Gyllenhaal character that his wife was a gambler and her face, and he gives you the entire story, and then in order to appease his wife, he carves his own face. So that's how he got the scars. At another point, he tells someone his father gave him the scars. Son, why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face. That's how I got a scar. At the end, he wants to tell the Batman, again the mind game, do you know how I got these scars? And we all know the answer to that. Okay. So he is an unreliable narrator. We don't know his past. We don't know anything about him. And he doesn't give you any clues. So unreliable narrator with an enigmatic past. Characters as dramatic foils to each other. Harold and Maude. Have you watched the movie? She is 80, he is 20. Okay. She is in love with life, he is in love with death. They fall in love. And it's not a platonic love, let me tell you. So you watch the movie and she is 80 and he is 20 and they have a love affair. Okay, Harold and Maude. But they are still very enigmatic, very dramatic characters, contrasting characters, and very, very interestingly done sketch of two kinds of people. I often think of this movie whenever I watch Zohra Sehgal on screen. The way she banters with other characters. She is a very interesting actor. So if you have watched Sanvaria, for instance, have you? Is there anyone in the movie? Don't get put off by Sanvaria's reputation. It's a very aesthetically, very well made, well acted film. Okay, very well shot, very well presented. So people snigger. We had Ravi K. Chandran with us, remember, who did the cinematography of Sanvaria. Okay, and he told me that Sanvaria is being taught in many American universities as part of their cinematography course. And it is a very well done movie. People just talk without watching the movie. So Zohra Sehgal in Sanvaria is a very interesting character. Even if you watch him with playing, Bachchan's mother in Cheeni Kam, okay, full of life, and always very dynamic. You don't find her that conventional, flat, melodramatic mother. Characters acting as foil to each other. two types of personalities, so one is good, one is evil, one is strong and silent, the other guy is vivacious and talkative. Can you think of an example? Sholay, our most popular Bollywood film. Okay, Jay and Veeru are foils to each other. Good cop, bad cop. 7, yeah, is a good study. Lethal Weapon is a good study of foils. The foil often is a trope in buddy films. So, as we were just talking, good cop, bad cop, 48 hours, right? Midnight Run with Robert De Niro, Rain Man, Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, characters acting foil. If both of them are alike, it will be a boring fare after a while. The plot arises, the interest in the plot arises because of the way the characterization is done. If you watch both these movies, Midnight Run and Rain Man, you take away the contrast in the characters, much of the plot would be lost. Okay, characters can also be caricatures, not just stereotypes. For example, Gloria Swanson's character in Sunset Boulevard. She is an actress past her prime. She lives in an ivory tower, oblivious to the fact that nobody wants to watch her films anymore. She keeps watching her old films in her home theater all the time, okay, obsessed with herself. So, therefore, caricaturing an actress past her prime. And they could be comic as well as tragic figure as in Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. So, leitmotif, just to give you an indication of what a leitmotif is, leitmotif could be a repetition of a single action or gesture or phrase or idea of a character. Often it adds value to the character. Rajani tossing a cigarette, Salman Khan doing things with his Ray-Ban sunglasses, leitmotif. Yeah, people want to watch that. So, however flat character you may think Chulbul Pandey is, okay, but the leitmotifs add to his characters. So, that is a trademark thing. Even a piece of music could be Joker's music, for example, Batman's music. They are all indicative of the character, they evoke this kind of character. James Bond, of course, we all know the music as a leitmotif and a catchphrase again indicates a character. So, I will be back, and then Bruce Willis in the latest version of Expendables says, this time I will be back. Okay. Characters can be allegorical. They refer to certain types in a particular socio-historical period or context. For example, Gary Cooper's role in High Noon indicated or symbolized those people who were blacklisted during the McCarthy period. In the movie, he plays a sheriff where he is ostracized by the town people, okay, because of certain fears, certain malicious gossips about him, but later we realize that he was in the right. So, that is an allegorical character. Characters can be moral, can have moral dialectics, very ambiguous, or can represent certain philosophical truths. And what is the movie that comes to your mind? I mean, I can think of Ingmar Bergman's persona, Wild Strawberries, okay, extremely philosophical, existentialist, The Seventh Seal. How many of you have watched Bergman at all? Wild Strawberry. So watch it. Go through the movie, you will understand. It's not, see, don't go by formidable reputation again and again. I talk in this course about Chulbul Pandey as well as Bergman. So, what's the moral you should take away from my course? Be open minded. Be open minded. I mean, you can talk about disco dancer as well as you can talk about being John Malkovich, right? So, don't look down upon any kind of cinema, as well as don't get put off by a certain kind of cinema. Okay. It's Bergman, so I think it will go over my head. Why watch it? It's Kurosawa, it will be slow. It's Satyajit Ray, oh my God, he will be all about some gross poverty, starving children, famine and all those. It's not like that. That was the scenario only in Pather Panchali. Okay. Many of Satyajit Ray's movies deal with very rich people, so you can watch them as well. Okay. For example, Charulata, okay, Charulata or Jal Sagar. Okay. So all these are very, so don't go by stereotypes about people and films and filmmakers. Okay. Watch everything with an open mind. So watch Bergman, watch The Wild Strawberries. Okay. If you are not Facebooking at the same time as watching a movie or not attending to your cell phones, you will find lot of things which are interesting. John Malkovich, being John Malkovich, what is it about? Entering into another person's head. Okay, and what does that do to you? It's not possible. Yeah, so it's actually an allegory. What happens when you start obsessing with people, obsessing about someone, and then the aftermath of it. Any comments at this point? Any characters, in any interesting character you would like to tell me about? Travis Bickle is many things, yeah, high on internal action, internal conflict, as well as external conflict and action. He is a highly existentialist character. Yeah, he looks for a meaning in a meaningless world. Okay, so that's Travis Bickle's character. I mean, unfortunately, he never got all those great awards for his acting, but I think he deserved it. Yes?
Apocalypse Now.
Marlon
Apocalypse
Brando.
Now. Okay, are you talking about Brando or Sheen?
Charlie Sheen.
Okay, why do you think Sheen's character in Apocalypse Now is interesting? Have you watched Apocalypse Now? It's a very, very complex role, very well done. Okay, watch it. Okay, he almost had, that's the inside story, he had a heart attack while preparing for the role. You can well imagine the intensity. Okay, another great theoretician apart from E.M. Forster is Henry James. In his Art of Fiction, mentioned something about telling characters and showing characters. Vijay, while doing Henry James with you, did I ever talk about telling and showing characters? Okay, can you recollect anything?
Telling characters, you explained it with reference to a novel.
Yeah.
We
So
had Washington.
good. Telling characters are when a writer or a filmmaker tells you or gives you a lot of details about the character. Okay, so that means he's telling you all about it. You need not rack your brains about understanding that particular character. Happens very frequently in novels, in plays also, where all the clues and all the descriptions are given. You know, she is sensual, he is greedy. So you're the writer is already helping you make up your mind about a character. showing no detailing, you just have to understand. 6 Degrees of Separation by John Gower. Okay. Gower never takes the trouble of telling you anything about his characters, except that a particular character is a black American. That is all he tells you, the color of his skin. The others are rich white people. Then you have poor white people as well. Okay. So, that is all he will tell you, but he never tells you how to interpret them, that is left to you. But there are people who tell you exactly what to think of particular character. So, that was a very common device in most of our cinema, especially cinema till the 90s. Now, of course, we are having lot of improvements in screenplay writing, etc. But there was a time when to establish a character, what would the filmmaker do? He is a good guy, simpleton. What would he do? All good deeds in the world, every good deed, and he will basically sing a song. In the song, he will do all the good things. Okay, he will help a blind man cross a road. He will give his coat to a shivering man. Okay, he will give away his last penny to a starving child or beggar, whatever. Okay, he will do everything. That is so. You are, what are you being told? Look, you are looking at a very nice guy. Okay, so don't think. And when the bad guy would be there, what would he is a rich man invariably. In in cinema of a particular period, all bad people were rich people. Okay, they would always drink, they would always smoke. Okay, and they would always be watching cabaret dances. Okay, in a CD bar and in a 5-star hotel. Okay, that's telling us that look, this is bad, this is good. Showing characters, the filmmaker leaves it to you to make up your mind, right. For example, consider Love, Sex and Dhoka by Debakar Banerjee. He does not tell you, I mean, there is a guy who records for the camera certain intimate acts with a girl. You are never told that the boy could be that creepy, you just go with the flow, and then it happens, and then we are left to decide to ourselves that what to make out of this boy and that girl. Okay, so that is showing character. The director would not go to extreme lengths to tell you what to make out of these characters, so telling and showing.
What about Kaiser Source and The Usual Suspects?
Whose character is that?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
Okay, do you think that we are to, I mean, if you are told certain things about Kevin Spacey, that poor cripple, oh, what will you do? Cripple sit in a corner while we rob the place. Okay, that's misleading us. Yeah, that's a very intelligent device. The entire plot is all about deception. We are talking about the unreliable narrator. Okay. Funny games.
No, David Lynch movie, Mulholland Drive.
You see, again, it's an enigmatic character. It's also a philosophical character. Okay. Yeah, the other girl is almost a foil to her. Yeah. So that's how Naomi Watts and the other actor. What's her name? In David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. Mulholland Drive, for obvious reasons, happens to be a favorite of this institute. All the boys talk to me about Mulholland Drive. For the last 7 years, I have been hearing this. So that means there is something about the movie. Okay. So, we will meet on Monday. Thank you very much.